Hey, I'm your host, Andrew Leong, and welcome to #Ambitious. For anyone who has never tuned in before, #Ambitious is all about business, marketing, and startups. I interview entrepreneurs and professionals about their businesses, their journey, their struggles, and how they're growing their businesses. In this episode, we have Chris Hickey, co-founder of Mercury Hampton. Mercury Hampton is an executive recruitment and headhunting agency. The business has just had a booming first year, so I catch up with Chris to get his story. Let's jump right in. Chris, thank you so much for being on the #Ambitious podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your story, please?
I'm 35 years old. I've been in the recruitment industry now for coming up to 13 years. Prior to that, I was in the Air Force. I fell into recruitment completely by absolute default and fluke, and I'm sure that's how most people fall into this type of sector. We don't go through school thinking, I want to be a recruitment consultant. I definitely don't think that happens. So, I started my recruitment career for a search firm in Manchester, having recently finished the RAF. Started in sales recruitment, working for multinational companies, global companies, learned to cut my teeth in the sales and marketing arena. Before moving into the world of senior appointments, which that was the area that I really found interesting about recruitment. That was when I felt that I come into my own. It was a real area of interest for me, working with managing directors, investors, shareholders on helping them structure talent within their business. Going through that journey over the last 12 years, what I've realized is that there's lots of gaps in the recruitment industry, which was primarily the reasons why Mercury Hampton, the company that I work for, was ultimately founded.
So, Why was Mercury Hampton founded?
Mercury Hampton was founded on the back of my personal experiences over the last 12 years. And those personal experiences of the recruitment industry have been, some of them have been negative, some of them have been positive. And Mercury Hampton was ultimately founded to eradicate as many of those negatives as we possibly can. So in simple terms, the philosophy of the business is be yourself. We don't want to have an irrelevant KPI driven system in place for the sake of doing it. So we didn't want that in, because I believe that compromises not only everyone in the business, appeasing a KPI metric to keep me happy. Well, that KPI metric also upsets lots of candidates and clients along the way. So we didn't want that in. So we do have an alternative solution, which I'll talk to you about later on the podcast. In essence, we were founded to bridge the gap between the extortion of executive recruitment fees at 50, 60, 70,000 pounds for the recruitment of a managing director, and the anarchy of contingency recruitment. So contingency recruitment is all speed-based, low-quality, CV throw-in recruitment. Recruitment companies operating in the contingency world generally don't have the commitment from the client of exclusivity, or they're not retained. Therefore, their behaviour changes as a result of that. It becomes a speed-based, non-quality recruitment service, which is just absolutely stupid, because I certainly wouldn't want a recruitment company treating my business in that manner. So we were incorporated to bridge that gap. So we offer psychometric testing services, executive search services, talent pool mapping, salary benchmarking, global headhunting for the same costs of contingency recruitment. So it's a win-win for everyone involved. The client gets a retained executive service. They get the psychometric testing. They get the support of the senior guys in Mercury Hampton for the same costs of contingency. We don't do a speed-based approach. We take our time. We're very diligent, and our behaviour changes to accommodate an executive search service. We focus everything on quality. Everything is on the customer experience, and we want to be seen as a company who can offer a very high standard of service for a reasonable cost, and also make the recruitment process as enjoyable and painless as possible. That's ultimately why we were founded. I've worked at both sides of the fence in recruitment. I've done executive search. I've done contingency recruitment. I could talk about this all day. To a client doesn't necessarily know what contingency or retained is, but the benefits of retained search over contingency, they're endless. If I was a client and I'm listening to this and you're working with a recruitment partner, go and find a good headhunter. Go and find a cost-effective retained search consultant, because you'll always get the best results working with that person. Contingency hires, it's all speed-based, it's low quality. You become a KPI. It's just not the best approach to growing a business. If you're going to grow a business, do it properly. Get a good recruiter. Get someone invested in the company. Do it properly. Mercury Hampton could potentially be that option.
So in your last organisation before you set up Mercury Hampton, were you following that same recruitment methodology, or is this a new methodology to you that you've specifically wanted to implement into Mercury Hampton?
We weren't following this methodology. This methodology is new. In my last firm, we had options of executive search or contingency recruitment. They're both effective in their own right. Contingency is, it is a speed-based recruitment search, but we in the last firm we didn't really have a bridging method between the two options, and in some cases a bridging method is what's needed. Companies don't want to pay £50,000 for a fee. They don't understand the value in it sometimes, which I can understand. However, as a client, they do only see the tip of the iceberg. They don't see the 2 weeks it's taken to identify a candidate map for the headhunt. They don't see the 300 telephone calls that it goes into speaking to the headhunted target list, and then the 40 hours of interviewing that it takes, and then the £4,000 that's been spent on advertising or whatever. They don't see any of that. The most important thing to a client is they need to feel that going through the process with a recruitment company, that they've been listened to, the process has been enjoyable, and that they've got everything out of it that they wanted, which in most cases is the perfect candidate. But behind the perfect candidate is a very vigorous and dynamic recruitment process, and a recruitment process that measures every aspect from start to finish. That's what we've implemented, a very measurable, sensible recruitment process that can be duplicated with each client. Every client gets the same level of quality, the same level of support, the same level of high standards. Whereas when you operate on a system which is simply low quality, speed based or extortion, there is no middle point. And that middle point is really where all the problems lie. So we've mastered that middle point, and we've done it really well.
You got clients on the phone, and they're getting so many different phone calls, and they've probably been through a recruitment process with your typical recruitment consultant or your typical recruitment agency. So they're going to already have a experience of recruitment.
Yeah.
You've got this methodology, a more powerful methodology. How are you educating the client on this?
I have some awkward conversations with clients, and I say a lot of things that probably other people haven't said to them before. Some recruitment companies, they won't say the obvious because they're scared of losing the deal or they're scared of losing a relationship. Well, I don't look at it that way. If the client's not doing something right, then you need to tell them. It's your duty. We're the experts. They're not an expert in recruitment. They only recruit 3 times a year, 4 times a year, 5 maybe. I don't know. It might be more. Slightly different if you're a HR manager because they're doing it quite regularly. But they're still not on this side of the fence. Recruitment is a small discipline of many things that they're doing, where this is 100% of our time. So we understand the role and the responsibilities of recruitment, infinitely more than they do. So why not pass that knowledge on? If you pass that knowledge on to the client, it helps them make a better decision. Therefore, when they appoint your candidate, that you know that they've appointed their candidate with all of the right processes and procedures in place. Therefore, that candidate is going to stay. There's less chance of that person leaving because there's not a misalignment between the recruitment process of the client and the candidate. They've followed the process properly. Lots of companies are not prepared to have those conversations. I am prepared to have those conversations. If anyone listening to this or anyone on LinkedIn wants to pick up the phone and ask me a question about their recruitment process, how they can make it better, I will take my time with no cost to educate them on what they need to do. If through doing that that they implement those processes, I can guarantee that will work at their end. Not 100% of the time, because there is an element of human error, but a lot more than it's working, a lot more than it is right now. So we're going to be doing blogs, we're going to be doing videos. I'm going to be trying to give back to clients and candidates about CV preparation, interview preparation, tips on how to use psychometric testing properly. Lots of companies don't use it properly. And just helping companies and candidates prepare for interviews and how to get the best out of the recruitment process from their side. So I'm going to be doing blogs and some articles on things like that. But ultimately, for any information about that, just pick the phone up. I'll take my time. I'll speak to you, and I will impart all of my knowledge and information free of charge. Just might have to buy me a coffee. That's about it. But yeah.
Okay. I'm actually quite interested, because my background is in recruitment, which you thought was the most challenging, because I know recruitment is hard work. I think everyone knows that who's been in recruitment. But which one was the most challenging?
They're both completely different. I think, believe it or not, I think recruitment is harder.
Okay.
I think recruitment is harder. The military is very difficult. But once you pass the basic training stage, you've exited that period of pain. So the pain is temporary in the military. The process of selection in the military is all geared around survival of the fittest, ultimately. And that's exactly what it is. When you join a military squadron, there's 100 people, and when you get to stage of pass out, there's 30. So the attrition is very high. But the attrition in recruitment is probably even higher than that. So probably over the years when I've recruited people and when I've worked in businesses, the attrition in recruitment is frighteningly high. It's too high. And I don't know whether it's down to poor leadership, whether it's down to people joining the industry with, a false perception of what it's about. But recruitment is definitely harder. And the reason is there is no basic training and then you pass and then you're in this euphoric land of success. It's continuous personal development. When you think you've achieved something, you've got to go back to the drawing board. You've got to keep reinventing yourself. You've got to reinvest in yourself. You've got to look at developing. You've got to look at new technology trends. You've got to look at the market. You've got to keep your eye on the economy. It's really difficult. You've really, really got to turn your head to lots of things. The common misconceptions in recruitment is that it's CV searching, CV snapping. That's 1% of the job. It really is. It is literally 1% of the job. If it was that, I'd have a yacht in Monaco. Unfortunately, I don't, because it's not just CV snapping. There's a lot more to it. So military, really difficult. Great grounding for anyone coming into any commercial career. Gives you good common values. You learn how to communicate properly. Leadership, structure. You learn all of those things. All of those things, I think, have played to their advantages for me working in the executive recruitment field. Without going into the RAF, I would not be who I am right now. It changed my life. And I would not have done anything differently than what I did. So, yeah, I'm really grateful to it.
How is the RAF? I know it's a lot of physical training, but my understanding that they build you up mentally as well.
Yeah.
So how were you mentally before the RAF to after the training and your career there?
I joined the military to ultimately travel, to learn skills, and to take advantage of meeting different people and to utilize my hobbies. So I suppose in answer to your question, I'm very sporty and very athletic. I like to be active, but I also like to apply a bit of strategy and thinking. And so before joining the RAF, I was someone who was, I'm a deep thinker, but someone who was very interested in sport, very active. And I just thought channeling my energies as a young guy into something like that was the right decision for me. In answer to the question in full, before going into the military, I was a typical young guy. I was a bit of an idiot. Like going out on weekends, every weekend, even weekdays, actually. And that changed me. So it was my course of entry into adulthood, probably. and it's absolutely fantastic. I'd advise anyone who is a young guy who really doesn't know what they want to do. It's a good training. It's a good way of getting access to world-class training and really learning about who you are. And I think in the military, I knew who I was, and that has helped me in life. I still use those methods now, even now. Yeah, the military is really, it's a really good career, really good.
Okay. So you set up Mercury Hampton, and I mean, setting up a recruitment business is notoriously difficult. So I'm assuming you were a top biller or one of the top billers before you set up Mercury Hampton in your previous employment.
Yeah, I was a shareholder and a director for a company in Manchester. I actually joined the company on a graduate scheme, and I worked for the company for nearly 12 years. So I joined as a entry-level recruit and progressed my way up in the company, eventually becoming a shareholder and a director. But during that time, I was always top biller. Always. I was top biller when I left. I'm sure those records that I've set will never be broken, but that's up to someone else to try and break those. But yeah, I was really successful when it comes to actually being hands-on the job. And I've got I have quite an unorthodox style to billing. I'm a very good lateral thinker, and that lateral thinking has enabled me to become, a very successful biller. I've been in the top 1% in the industry in terms of billings, which, bear in mind the industry, there's probably 30,000 plus. I don't even know. I should really know this considering I'm in the recruitment industry. There's probably 30,000 plus recruitment companies. So to be in the top 1% of billers, you can imagine what that takes. It's very, very difficult.
Can we dissect that? So
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So how did you achieve that?
If you asked me to break it down into component parts, I actually think I'd really struggle to articulate every single piece. But I think what it mainly come down to with me is I've got high standards. So those standards are with me both in work and at home. If I'm going to paint a wall, I'll paint a wall well. If I'm going to fit a door, I'll make sure it fits perfectly. And that's not really the best analogy, but everything I try and do to the best I possibly can. So having high standards has helped me, achieve the highest achievements, really. But I've got a really strong work ethic. This is probably a negative. I do struggle switching off. I'm always reading. I'm always watching, Simon Sinek videos or TED Talks. I'm always trying to improve on my techniques. The main thing I would say though is, and I give credit to the people I've worked with, is I have worked with some really good people, and I've ultimately copied off what they do, but found a better way once I've copied that, found a better way of implementing it as well.
So you're constantly learning, you're seeking out people that you aspire, but who you admire, and take tips from them, but then you adapt them to your own. Yeah.
I was very fortunate in my last firm when I joined. I was sat in a room. The business was quite small at the time. I was sat in a room with 3 directors who trained me, and I credit to them to this day. I wouldn't be who I am really without their help. One of the directors is actually with me at Mercury Hampton, which is Jonathan Salis. Jonathan actually appointed me as a graduate, as a trainee.
Wow.
And myself and Jonathan, we grew the last firm, and then we established Mercury Hampton together. So, it's like a bit of a poetic story, really, for John to recruit me all of those years ago, and then be in a situation that we're in right now where we've rapidly expanded and achieved what we've achieved is it's just fantastic. So, but I wouldn't be here today without all of the people I've had around me. I've watched, I've listened, I've observed everything they do. But what I think is key to someone in recruitment is watch the people who do things right, but also watch the people who do things wrong. Because the people who do things wrong, sometimes you can have a masterclass in what not to do. And learning what not to do is equally as valuable as learning what to do. So again, that's something I put myself down to, is I'm a very good observer, and I've watched lots of people make mistakes, and I've tried to not make those mistakes myself. So yeah, looking at the good points, looking at the bad points, putting that together, throw in some of your personality, some high standards, some high work rates is a winning formula.
Okay. So you're a top biller and you're director of a company. It sounds almost in a situation where life's really, really good. So what was the transition to opening your own business? Because I mean, being a top biller and then being an entrepreneur and having your own staff, and suddenly your responsibilities are far more than being a top biller. So what was the transition and your thought process?
The transition that's a really good question, actually. The transition was quite scary, and I could answer this in so many different ways. I wanted to set my own firm up for 3 or 4 years, and the business is a year old now. So I have been thinking about this for 3 or 4 years, but due to the timings in my personal life, it didn't materialize until a year ago. It was very difficult. It was a very difficult decision. I'd worked for my last firm, man and boy. I was a high earner, big mortgage. Walking away from all of that to ultimately not earn a salary in itself was very difficult. But the week I actually resigned from my last job, I found out my wife was pregnant. So I was in a situation where I had no income. I'd committed to a lease on a building, bought loads of technology with no income, with a wife that was pregnant. So it was really, really difficult. So a brave decision, but it was the best decision I've ever made.
So what was going through your mind during that time, and how did you stay mentally strong and stay the course?
I entered into this in full confidence that it was always going to work. And the reason for that is I've been in situations in the past, in my last firm, where we went through a period of a recession, if you remember, 6-7 years ago. And that was really difficult. So I had to build from scratch again at that point. So it's no different than the term used in recruitment is building a desk, building a desk from scratch. It's very much the same when you're building your own business. You start with your desk, you build your desk, then you expand on that desk, and 2 people end up managing that particular function. And then that 2 becomes 4, and then that 4 becomes 8, and so on. And but to keep me focused was my family, because it couldn't fail for me. I couldn't let it happen. I've got a big mortgage, child on the way, all of my willpower was invested into this business. Nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. And it's just something that I've always wanted to do. And I knew I had all of the ability to do it. And I've done everything to a T so far. Jonathan Salis, who works with me, has been a massive help. We bounce off each other really well. And it's just been, I'm just very lucky. I've had people around me who've supported me, and it's been great.
So now you're running your own business. How do you spend most of your time? Now you've got staff to look after, you've got accounts and all these other things. So where are you spending most of your time at the moment, and how are you managing it all?
My time is spread equally across all of those functions. The difficulty when you do open your own company is that you are everything. You're the finance manager, you're the HR manager, you're the managing director, you're the sales director, you're everything. So it's really difficult. That's the difficult part, I would say, of starting a business. My advice to anyone wanting to start their own business in recruitment or anything else is make sure that your supplier partners are in place. Make sure you've got a good phone support company. Make sure you've got a good IT support company. Make sure you've got all of those things in place, because I didn't have everything in place when we started this. So I found myself drowning in non-sales activities. But now I've sort of mastered the art of spinning plates. Sometimes I drop a few of them, but that's the nature of business. I do invest, lots of my time in helping the guys in the business, whether it be developing their accounts, whether it be on interviewing techniques. And then the next minute I'll be jumping onto an IT problem. Then I'll be jumping onto a payroll problem. Then we'll have an advertising problem. Then my wife will ring me and I've got to go home, and we've got another problem with the roof. So it's really difficult juggling all of those plates, but it's exciting. It's really exciting. I didn't have to worry about any of these things when I was on just solely on the tools, being a big biller. But I've maintained big billing standards while spinning all these plates. So I've billed more in my own company than I ever have done before, because it's my own company and I have to.
So what's been your biggest challenge today? It doesn't need to be in terms of Mercury Hampton, but what's been your biggest challenge to date, and how did you overcome it?
But I could come at this one with so many angles, whether it be a personal challenge or a professional challenge. I think from a professional point of view, I think what we touched on earlier in the conversation, moving away from focusing solely on sales activities, moving into the world of managing every aspect of a business is quite daunting, especially when it's all of your own money invested. All of the risk is on you. You can potentially lose your house. That's frightening. That's really frightening. That in itself has been a real challenge. Personally, myself and my wife, we've been going through IVF for 5 years. That's probably the biggest challenge. But we had a son 4.5 months. I nearly got his age wrong then. She would kill me. But we've been going through IVF for a long time. So that was probably the biggest challenge. And I know that's not business related. Probably can't add a lot of value for someone listening. But if you can put control mechanisms in place to manage your personal life, you can manage it. It's no different than putting control mechanisms in place to manage your business life either. They're both the same. There's no difference.
You've got your values and you've got a solid recruitment methodology. So you've got a fantastic foundation. You've grown significantly over your year. So what's your vision for the future?
The vision for the future is I see Mercury Hampton growing even more next year. We're looking at brand new offices at the moment. We've already moved twice. This will be our third time in 13 months. So we're moving in the right direction. My vision for the business, I see us capitalizing on the gap that exists at the minute, again, between the executive search world and the contingency world. I think in the area that we're in, I see us being a very good employer of choice for people locally to where we are. I see us being an organisation which breaks the trends of behaviour in the recruitment world, and that's why we're here. I want to be seen. My vision ultimately is to be different, stand out for the right reasons, give companies a high quality recruitment service, support them, listen to them, and to be well thought of, grow sensibly, and continue to support companies who are looking to hire strategic appointments, not just in the UK but globally, and hopefully be seen as a strategic recruitment partner who can partner with companies from mid-management through to executive board level.
So being in recruitment and having met many recruiters and being friends with many recruitment consultants, one thing I've noticed about you is you haven't conformed to your typical recruitment consultant behavior, the way you speak or anything like that. You think like an MD, you talk like an MD, you're very down to earth, you're someone that's very approachable. How have you kept your own personality and your own identity and not conform to your typical high street recruitment consultant personality?
I think at times when I started in the industry, I probably was one of those recruitment robots. The people who probably had conversations with me when I first joined the recruitment world probably would have had the same impression of me at that time over, who's this guy ringing me? He's probably rang 100 people before he's rang me, which probably would have been the case at that time because I was cutting my teeth in the industry. I think when someone joins the recruitment world and the world of business, I think they tend to, we end up being creatures of habit, and we copy off the people around us. We try and adapt our own personalities into the culture of the business. And I've done that in the past, and I'm sure many other people still do that to this day. So when setting Mercury Hampton up, the business was set up on my belief system, and my belief system was based on, it's my personal belief system, but lots of my beliefs have been influenced by bad experiences and through my own professional experience in recruitment. So I thought it was very important to be true to myself and try and encourage people internally here to let their personalities shine through so that the client is having a genuine experience, not an experience with some robot or someone who's treating them like a KPI, which in the recruitment world, lots of companies, lots of clients and candidates, they do feel like a KPI. They've had like 50 calls. They've probably spoke to that same person 2 weeks ago, and that person's not logged it on the sheet that they've spoke to him 2 weeks ago. So I've tried to move away from all of that. As a company, we We are an organisation which is very modern, very professional, very down to earth. We pride ourselves in our customer service and listening. To implement all of those beliefs, we have to behave a certain way. So adopting traditional recruitment methodology, behaving like a traditional recruitment guy would eradicate all of those things. So for us, it's about being true to ourselves and sticking to a value system that we agreed when we set the business up. So, but I think people buy from people. Being genuine is key. Listening to people, wanting to help them without them feeling that you're wanting to help them at a cost. When someone feels there's a cost, the relationship, the dynamics in the relationship can change. So I've tried to, once the fee's agreed, we don't talk about the money at all. It's just a case of, well, the money's just a byproduct. It's just an absolute byproduct of a successful process. And that's the part that lots of recruitment companies do get wrong, is that everything is about the KPI and about the money and about their own egos. We don't have egos in here. I make the brews for the guys. They make me a brew the next minute. I will take them out for lunch and pay for them. I'll pick them up at McDonald's milkshake. We'll have a McDonald's breakfast. We don't have egos at all. We're not that type of people. I don't want any of those egos in here either.
I've got one more recruitment related question, and then I want to get to know you more as a person. Yeah. So, advances in technology, we're heading down a route of AI. We've got even AI cold calling people now. Yeah. And,
okay, have we?
Yes, yeah. Okay, we've got AI systems that actually call people up and go take them down a sales process based on the client's responses. Recruitment industry is sort of got a bit of a conversation about AI, whether there'll be any kind of humans in the recruitment process and all AI. I just wonder what your opinions on AI in recruitment are.
I think AI will partner with recruitment companies rather than take over recruitment companies. I've seen lots of articles online about, will recruitment companies exist in 10, 15 years? Well, of course they will, because AI can only be developed so far. I don't see there ever being AI that can adapt to the ever-changing economic changes or human emotions. I don't see that ever happening unless Cyberdyne systems of Terminator actually happens. I don't see that happening, but I do see it complementing not just the recruitment industry, but any industry involved in any industry in the business services world. Whether it's due to streamlining processes, helping them use information the right way, helping them engage with each other. I see it complementing industries rather than taking over. So, be interested to see what other people's thoughts and opinions are on that. But I'm open to trying them out in Mercury Hampton.
I agree with you on that. I think they'll be complementary things rather than a replacement. Okay, Chris, I just want to get to know you a little bit more as a person. What's one habit or thing or piece of software or app that you've implemented, used in the last 2 years that have impacted your life, made it better in some way?
I'm a big fan of TED Talks. I love TED Talks, in particular Simon Sinek, which is Start With Why. Starting with why is a really powerful method. And if you think about why we do things, well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Why are we here? How do we do it? It's a really interesting methodology. And I've applied that methodology to Mercury Hampton. We spoke about my why earlier in the podcast. But I'm a big TED Talks fan. I think it's good to lean on people who have mastered industry, whether it be someone like Simon Sinek or whether it be in my industry. There's some really good recruitment entrepreneurs out there, which one of them's a really well respected company director, and I'm in conversations with him at the minute. which I think he's on one of your podcasts, actually.
Yeah, Reese. Yeah. We can mention Reese.
Yeah, okay. Well, and I've watched videos on other recruitment leaders. I've watched videos on sales leaders, project management leaders, marketing gurus. I love watching videos about business success, about methodology, about man management, about human resources. I watch lots of different videos, and there's a really good one as well, which we apply. There's a lady called Regina Hartley. She's a HR leader in the logistics world. There's a video of her on YouTube. It may even be on LinkedIn, and I'm sure someone will be able to find it. But she talks about the recruitment world, about someone being either a silver spoon or a scrapper. And a silver spoon refers to someone who's maybe been to like Oxford University, and the scrapper is maybe someone who's a bricklayer from Manchester or something. And she talks about her approach and how she looks at assessing people. And I use a lot of her methods here when we're looking for talent for our clients and looking for talent internally for us. So if anyone's interested in watching that video, it's definitely a good video if you're in the human resource world or the recruitment world. But yeah, I love watching. Anything about business nowadays is on TED Talks. So anything you need, go on TED Talks. Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah.
You have a multitude of skills. What's the one skill you would attribute to your success, or which one do you think has been the most beneficial?
To me, I'm someone who's got. There's two parts to this. I've got very high standards, so I don't leave anything to chance. I've got exceptionally high standards, to the point where I could probably get diagnosed with OCD. Actually, if I probably did a test, I've got very, very high standards, and the reason is because I just think that why should you not have high standards? Why would you compromise on your standards? Standards are important. They're important in your business life. They're important in your personal life. If you maintain a high standard for everything you do, then you'll achieve things. And so that'd be the first point. The second point I'd say is adaptability. I'm able to adapt to people from all walks of life, whether they're an investor off the Dragon's Den, whether they're a bricklayer from Salford, whether they're a chef in London. I can identify to those people. I come from a working class background, but which I'm grateful of. And having those adaptable skills have proved really effective in the recruitment world, because 1 minute you can be speaking to an investor, a managing director, and then the next minute you're speaking to a young up and coming business professional who wants to rule the world, and he's 22 years old. So you need to have the adaptability skills. Without that, doing this job is very, very difficult. Actually, I'd say impossible. Without the adaptiveness, recruitment is impossible. Without high standards, achieving success to the highest level is impossible. If you don't implement those two things, you just won't do well in this industry. There are lots of other things as well that you have to do. I'm not going to go into them because I'd be talking to you. You'd probably fall asleep. But I would say they're my two biggest attributes.
Okay. Who inspires you the most?
My inspiration's a bit strange, because it's not business related, and I'm not going to say my mum or dad or any of those things, because of course they inspire you. Your family do inspire you. Your colleagues inspire you. Mine weirdly is Sylvester Stallone.
Okay.
Which is really weird, isn't it?
It's not, because I'm assuming you're aware of the story with his dog and
yeah. And that's come about because I'm a boxing fan, and I've grew up on Rocky films. I'm a kid of the 80s era, so Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. But it was only when I started to read about Sylvester Stallone and I realised about his hardship, about him. He didn't really make it until he was in his 30s. I actually paid to meet Sylvester Stallone this year. And he said he's at the age of 30, it was the strangest year of his life, because he entered his 30s nearly homeless. And then as he approached 31, he was a multimillionaire because of the Rocky film. And I've followed him throughout his career, and he's achieved He's been the top of his game. He should be an inspiration to lots of people. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger as well. The guy is ultimately a bodybuilder, achieved the top 1% in bodybuilding. Then he went into Hollywood, achieved the top 1% in Hollywood. And then he was the governor of California. So he's had 3 separate careers. The odds of achieving being the top of your game in 3 separate careers, especially in the competitive field that he's in, it's probably 1 in a billion to achieve what he's achieved. So, so not typical answer. I love Simon Sinek and Alex Ferguson and David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo and all of those people. But I just think, coming from the 80s, growing up in the 80s, Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, why not? Why not, Yeah.
If anyone wants to reach out to you, are they able to, and how can they?
Yeah, no problem. It's they could contact me via email. So it's chris.hickey@mercuryhampton.com. Or the office number is 01925 937 311. Or they can contact me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. They can contact the office and speak to any one of us, and I'll send a message at any time and we'll get back to them.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, Chris.